Hello and welcome to Beach View, our podcast about different things and/or stuff.
Hello, welcome. So this time we decided to read another short story, which we haven't done in quite a while. And the one that we chose was a Sherlock Holmes, The Adventure of the Dying Detective.
Yes, by Arthur Conan Doyle, like usual, and was written in published in 1913. No idea when it was written.
Wow. So long ago.
Yeah, well, that's also one of the later Sherlock Holmes stories, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that anytime I go to read like a Sherlock Holmes, which I mean obviously isn't too often because I've only really done it for the podcast. I mean, I did it before for like other classes and stuff, but when I go to read it, I'm always like surprised that like something that was written that long ago is still like it immediately like interests me. Like it kind of like sucks you into the story for me anyway, right away. And I don't know why like it matters how long ago it was, but just that it's like it was that long ago, but it's still like an interesting story now.
Yeah, that's a you problem. I don't disparage older works for their age.
I don't disparage it, but some stuff that's like written, super long time ago isn't as relatable. And I'm always about things being relatable, so.
I don't know that this story is relatable, but...
I guess just, yeah, you're actually right about that. I think it's more like that it interests me then. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no.
Sometimes the language used or like the phrasing is just kind of like, yeah, I'm not getting into it.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, but this is the 1900s. It's like not a problem.
Still, though, you think about more than 100 years ago, it's kind of, I don't know. It's sometimes it
seems
but
the language isn't going to be a problem.
Yeah, the language isn't going to be a problem, but some turns of phrases are just interesting or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think it's kind of cool that it's still interesting to me all these years later. It seems like sometimes more than 100 years ago is so long ago, but then on the other hand, like it really isn't when you're thinking about, like you're saying, the written language, etc., that we use today. It's not that long ago.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, so I do think this is a neat story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, despite of its age. I think it's an interestingly written story, regardless. I like the little, it's a kind of a clever detective story in that way.
Yeah.
Like Sherlock Holmes is getting one over on somebody, and, we're not brought into it in the beginning, as Watson, the writer of the Sherlock Holmes stories, is not brought into it.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole time you're kind of like, okay, what's the angle? Like, what is this?
Yeah, like what exactly is happening? Because
yeah.
As the title suggests, Sherlock Holmes is sick, very sick. And you're like, what's happening here?
Yeah, like what's going on? So you're trying to figure it out. And I like the little side characters that like they bring in that you don't think, like it starts off by talking about the landlady and how she's like really upset.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the other like and I guess I don't know if he's an investigator or police officer or whatever he is, like later on.
Yeah, random police guy.
Yeah, and then he like comes back in at the end, so it just, everything works together so flawlessly.
But yep, yeah, it's a fun little story. I guess I'll get into a plot synopsis.
Sure.
Alright, so Dr. Watson, who is Sherlock Holmes' assistant, I guess he's moved out by this point. I'm pretty sure they lived together earlier in the canon, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe that's like a later thing.
Yeah, I don't recall that, but I mean, I recall them living together. I don't recall like when they weren't living together.
Yeah, but in this case, he is not living with them any longer, and he comes to visit him because landlady calls and says he's deathly ill, and he won't go to the doctor. So, I need you to come do something about this. Watson comes in, and Holmes is all like belligerent. Well, I guess belligerent's not the right word, but he's like delirious. He's kind of like weird and like aggressive about, no, don't go get a doctor, don't come like try to do anything for me. I'll get you sick too. And no, I'm gonna like sit this out or something. It's weird that he's like not getting treatment.
Right. But they kind of introduced at the beginning like how, his eccentricities are like,
Yes.
he plays music at strange hours. He's, doing scientific experiments, and, they kind of like set the stage where he's like a little unusual. So
Yeah, it's part of his stubbornness and eccentricities, I suppose. But
yeah,
eventually, well, first he's gonna like go get a doctor, and Holmes like locks them in, like
yeah,
rushes up all of a sudden to lock them in. He's like, okay, now we're gonna wait a little bit, like
yeah,
2 hours, I think. Watson picks up a strange box, and Holmes yells at him not to touch it.
yeah,
This comes up later. The time passes, and then eventually, Holmes is like, okay, there's this one guy you can get, Culverton Smith. You can go fetch him, but he's the only person who I'll accept. He's the only person who knows anything about my illness, despite not being a doctor for some reason. He seems to be some sort of researcher, as a hobby. He's a
yeah,
hobbyist researcher. And he's also like, okay, make sure you tell him that you're not going to go with him. Like, you can't come with him. And come back and tell me once you've fetched him. Which is, again, really weird, but he does this. He goes off and gets the guy. At first he won't see him, but then he's like, okay, yeah. And Watson rushes in, he's like, oh, Sherlock Holmes, yeah, sure. I'll go see him. Watson comes back, Holmes is like, okay, you gotta hide.
yeah.
He's like, what's
You're
going
like,
on
what
here?
is going on? Yeah.
And then, yeah, Smith comes in, and he's like, they're talking to each other. He's like, oh, yes, I've poisoned you somehow, or something, with the little box.
Yeah.
Which, like, apparently is a makeshift object. Apparently, Holmes investigated his, what was it, nephew?
Yeah, I think it was his nephew.
Yeah, that his nephew died, and, Holmes figured out it was him, but apparently couldn't, like, get the evidence to arrest him. So he arranged this whole thing where he faked being sick because he knew Smith wanted to poison him. And Smith came out and said everything as, like, a taunt to Holmes. He's like, no, you're going to die soon. I made sure he come to taunt him as he's dying. And but Watson's there, so he's like, when he calls the police in and the police arrest him, Watson's there, and he's like, yes, I can corroborate this whole thing. And that's the end. He tricked him, basically, to, he tried to kill Holmes, and Holmes realized this, like, through poison, so Holmes like, I'm gonna fake being sick so that this guy comes here. And he'll, like, gloat about it, and that'll, get him to confess.
And in the process, so, like, he confessed to, like, actually poisoning and killing the other guy.
Yes, as well.
Yeah,
his
what was
nephew,
his name?
I think.
Yeah. I think what his name was. Yeah, but, so he got, and he knew, so Holmes knew that he was the one who had killed him, and then that he tried to poison him, like, he put it all together, and then, like, elicited the confession, and then he explained to Watson, like, how he, like, faked his illness and stuff.
Yes, he, like, basically put up on a bunch of makeup, like, stage makeup, basically.
Yeah, exactly, so that he would appear to be sick, and that's why he didn't want Watson coming near him, like, examining him, because he'd be able to tell.
And why he couldn't get any other doctor, he had to convince Watson to get this one specific guy.
Yeah. It's very interesting. And then Watson went along with it, like you could tell he was like, what is going on? But like he trusted like, Holmes's instinct, I guess. Like, okay, let me go get this guy who was apparently like some kind of like pathologist, but it wasn't clear if he was like an actual pathologist or just like a hobbyist.
Yeah, well, he said like he was a planter. Like he owned like a sizable like land holdings or something in Eastern, like British Eastern Territories, something like that. But yeah, and he like seems to do it as a hobby, and poisoned his nephew or whatever he was as a hobby.
Rude.
Or, like with his hobby stuff. I don't know. Weird guy, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, definitely weird. Even the way they described him, like physically, was like, okay, this is a strange guy. Yeah.
They give him a strange description. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, something about how he had a big head.
Yeah, with a shrill cry of anger, a man rose from the reclining chair beside the fire. I saw a great yellow face, coarse-grained and greasy, with heavy double chin and two sullen, menacing gray eyes which glared at me from enormous tuft and sandy brows. A high bald head had a small velvet smoking cap poised coquettishly upon one side of its pink curve. Yeah, the skull was of enormous capacity, and yet as I looked down, I saw, to my amazement, that the figure of the man was small and frail, twisted in the shoulders and back, like one who had suffered from rickets in his childhood.
Ricket, not the rickets.
Yeah, so kind of a weird-looking guy.
Yeah, very weird. So, and I think he said he was a well-known resident of Sumatra. Is that what you were talking about? It was like Eastern?
Yes, yeah, and he said he's a planter, yes.
Yeah. Oh, he did say. He says he had an outbreak of disease upon his plantation, which was distant from medical aid, caused him to study it himself, with some rather far-reaching consequences.
Yeah, and it seems like since then he started to study diseases, and I guess poisons too.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of a weird guy doing chemistry or some such, biology by himself.
Yes.
Poisoning people.
Poisoning people. And then the fact that he made like this weird little box that he had delivered to Sherlock Holmes's house, where when you open the box, like a spring springs out, and apparently it was laced with whatever poison it was.
Yep.
And so so Culverton was basically like just waiting for the effects to happen to Holmes, and that on the fourth day he would probably die.
Yep.
So, yeah, but, okay, so the police officer that Watson encountered when he was going to get a cab to go to Culverton's house, like this, he's like, it's kind of odd, like this police officer came up and was like, how's Holmes doing? He's like, oh, he's very ill. He's like, yeah, I heard that. I'm paraphrasing, but,
yeah, and then that same police officer comes back to arrest him.
Yeah, so, like, the police officer was in on it, so, like, Watson and the landlady were not in on it, but yes, I love how he's like, Watson, go hide behind the bed when he comes in. Yeah. And Watson's like, oh,
it's like, it's basically the only hiding spot.
Yeah. I like how Watson just goes along with it, like, sure, let me jump behind the bed. Kind of funny. So, definitely an interesting one. I like these little stories. Like, they're always like, grab my attention, because from the start, you're like, okay, what's going on? Like, what's the angle? What's happening? What's this clever little detective up to now?
Yeah.
And I just like the characters, like Watson is like more like pragmatic and, kind of the different personality, but he just like goes along with like Sherlock Holmes' shenanigans because they like trust each other.
Yep.
That's why Sherlock knew like Watson would go and fetch the guy for him.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but he also kind of was like, you never let me down before, don't let me down now, kind of thing. So, very convincing.
Yeah, and it's a clever little ruse to fake being sick, because the guy's trying to poison you. And I like the bit at the end where he's like, is there any other little service that I can do you, my friend? Which is from Smith saying that, and then Sherlock Holmes replies, I mentioned a cigarette.
Yeah.
I nearly called out in my joy and amazement. He was speaking in his natural voice. A little weak, perhaps, but the very voice I knew, so he had been, like, faking being, like, all, like, weak, sick and whatnot. Yeah. And he's like, in his normal voice, it's like, oh, yes, give me a cigarette. And that's when he's like, that's his, like, reveal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like how the signal for the cop to come in was he had asked them to turn up the gas to, like, make the light brighter.
Yeah. Yeah, neat little story.
Yeah, and then at the end, so Watson's like, okay, but why, and we already kind of talked about this, but why wouldn't you let me near you if you really weren't infected? And he's like, my dear Watson, do you think I have no respect for your medical knowledge or, whatever? I think he says talents.
Yeah.
And, like, so then he's, like, complimenting him, like, no, like, it's because I respected you that, like, I didn't want you to come near me because you would know I wasn't really sick. So it was a nice little compliment. But I do feel bad for Mrs. Hudson, the landlady, in all of this because she was just an innocent bystander. And she was, like, they describe her as being, like, so worried and, like, sobbing and, like, really thinking that Sherlock Holmes was going to die.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess you couldn't let her in on it, but she, like, for 3 days has been, like, checking on him and, like, says, like, oh, his bones are sticking out, very worried about him. And then, so Holmes, said that he fasted for 3 days, and that's how he got his, like, gaunt
part of
look.
It, yes.
I was like, whoa, I mean, he went to great lengths to get this guy to confess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen this one directly adapted, which I think is kind of a shame because I haven't watched a ton of Sherlock Holmes adaptations, but yeah, apparently Elementary and Sherlock, which are the like two modernish TV shows, like loosely adapt this. That's not like neither of them go for this exactly, and I think it's like this would work pretty well in TV too.
Yeah, I think it would. That's true. They need to do that.
But yeah, there are apparently some adaptations. There's a 1921 film adaptation, short film.
Oh. Of this?
Yes.
Hmm.
And there's a 1994 TV adaptation.
Well then, I hadn't a clue.
Yeah, might be something to watch. There's also a 1951 TV adaptation, but that's lost. So
Yeah, I wonder why like the more modern ones haven't adapted it because like there's so much material with like Sherlock Holmes that I feel like they would have, a lot to that they could use.
well, those were both modern adaptations. Like they take place in the modern day, and I
Okay.
think they both went for more like original stories or very loose adaptations. They didn't like directly adapt a lot
I
of
gotcha.
stories.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, the faking being sick and like as a twist for both the audience and the characters, I think that's a fun one.
Yeah. And the way he did it, like to make his lips look like all cracked and stuff, like I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. I was trying to find where he said what all he did. And I like how he was talking about oysters and stuff.
Yeah, 3 days of absolute fast does not prove one's beauty, Watson. For the rest, there's nothing which a sponge may not cure. With Vaseline upon one's forehead, belladonna on one's eyes, rouge over the cheekbones, and crust of beeswax around one's lips, a very satisfying effect can be produced. Yeah,
So,
a little
yeah.
occasional talk about half-crown oysters or any other extraneous subjects produce a pleasing effect of delirium. Yeah, because he also asked Holmes about like the money in his pocket.
Yeah. And he was like, he could balance it out. He's like, do you have money in your pockets? He's like, how many coins? He's like, move some coins to the other pocket.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. It was something goofy.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he was talking about like oysters and
Yep.
about how many oysters are in the bed of the ocean or something. So they're like, this guy's gone mad. I was thinking like, when he was talking about being delirious, I originally was thinking like malaria. But then I was like, no, it's gotta be something else. Cause like, if this is like, a little mystery, there's something else going on.
Yeah, well, also the disease he says he has is not a real disease.
Yeah. Funny. I like this one.
Yep.
And with all of them, I just like, I like how clever it is and how, like I said, it like immediately interests me. So like as soon as I start reading, I'm like, ooh, what's going to happen with this?
Yeah. Yeah, well, our little short stories about a mystery.
Yeah, which we like.
Yep.
And the short stories are super easy to read. Like, you're not sitting there trying to read a whole novel, but I like it.
Yeah, this one is shorter than the last one we read by quite a margin too, I think.
Yeah.
Probably could find the word count, but
I was thinking it seemed shorter than like other short stories we read, but I also didn't know if it was like how I was reading it because I was just like scrolling on my phone, whereas before like, I may have downloaded to like my Kindle or something like that. So the way I read things too like makes me think like, oh, is this shorter or longer? Like I really can't tell.
yeah,
but
this one's shorter.
This one seemed to go by fast.
It's also kind of it's like the few characters, it's like the one mystery central to it as like he's pretending to be sick.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good one.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of like the modern adaptations, it does, every time I like read something like this or like catch something else, I'm always like, why don't I go like watch some of this stuff? Because like obviously this genre interests me. I know I've seen like some episodes of Elementary like forever ago. In fact, I think like my husband was just watching one like not too long ago. Like I kind of overheard it. So I really want to go take a look at it and I just never get to it. I never remember. But as soon as I read something like this, I'm like, yeah, let me go check it out. Or I know Enola Holmes was another one, which I really don't know what that's about. I know we talked about it before, but that's kind of like an adjacent. I think that's like Sherlock Holmes' sister.
Yeah, isn't that a film?
I I don't know if it's a series or a film.
It's a film and it looks like it's got some, sequels. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I knew there were like multiple, but I didn't know what what medium it was. But I do think that one's set back in the original time frame, right? I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Anyway, so there's just some other also like other short stories that I would want to read, in this series.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think Elementary's like that much like this sort of story. It's more of a police procedural.
Oh, okay. So I probably
he was
wouldn't.
much closer to that than to like a sort of
yeah.
Sherlock Holmesy story. It's occasionally like that, but
Got
definitely
you.
feels more modern in that sense too.
Yeah, that's normally not a genre that I love, but I will sit there and watch something like that. Like if someone else is watching it, like and then I get into the story like every time I watch it. So I'm like, I guess I, really could check this out. But yeah, I'm more interested in like this kind of like trying to figure out what's going on while you're reading it kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. We might have to get into either some of these more of these Sherlock Holmes stories, like you were saying, or maybe some more adaptations.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've said this before. These types of stories always remind me of like the Encyclopedia Brown that I used to read when I was younger. It's kind of the same thing.
It's like a detective series. Yeah, they're in the same genre, right?
Yeah, but it's just like weird little mysteries that you would never get yourself until you read it at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to bring up is like I know that Holmes was, not like kind of playing Watson from the beginning because he needed Watson to not be in on the secret so that Watson would go to the guy, Culverton.
And would sell, like, the fact that he was dying, which he
Like
might struggle to
urgently,
do
yes.
if he knew.
Yeah, he's like, so I didn't want him in on the secret because I needed you to like get him to come because the guy hates him because of the whole thing with his nephew, which
Yeah.
I don't remember what was Holmes's involvement with the nephew.
His nephew died and he was investigating it. And
he was investigating it. Okay,
he fingered
makes
him for the
sense.
murder.
Got you. Okay. So the guy didn't like him, so he's like, I needed Watson to be in the dark so that he would grab him to come, But anyway, the whole point of what I'm trying to say is that I do like how he basically was like tricking Watson from the beginning, and he was like, because Watson's like, I'll check you out, like, or I'll go get these other doctors, and he's like, no. He's like, do you know of I'm reading this here, do you know of the Tampanuli fever? Or what do you know about Black Formosa corruption? And like, Watson's like, I haven't heard of either of those things. And he's like, yeah, exactly. You don't know this stuff. Like, I just think that's like such a funny kind of thing where he was like, no, you're not helpful. I need you to go get this man.
Yeah.
It's just like all of his trickery, but I'm like, and that's like his good friend and partner,
Yep.
Just messing with him. So I think that's also why it's kind of funny.
Well, he had a reason for it.
Yeah, he did, but it's just like a whole thing. But I just like that's part of the personality of like he's just, really committed to getting this done.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, and the fact that Watson almost opened the box, the weird little box that had the spray in it with the poison. And he was like, put it down. Don't touch it. Yeah. But anyway, I don't remember why he locked him in the room, though.
Because Watson was about to leave to go find a doctor.
And he was like, no, stay.
Yeah, he was like insisting on it, which would have foiled his plan.
Gotcha. So he locked him in and then let him out.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember Watson commenting that he was happy that he had the key when he left. So he's like,
Yeah.
in case he tries to lock himself back in, because he really thought he was delirious.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's everything.
I think so. Well, then I will take us out. So, this has been Beachview and the adventures of the dying detective this time. So, join us next time. Bye.
Bye.